I never thought I'd be the type of woman to cheat on her husband, but when his best friend kissed me that fateful night, I realized how starved for passion I truly was. My name is Maria, and I'm about to tell you the story of how I risked everything for a forbidden love. From stolen moments of ecstasy to crushing guilt, I'll take you on the emotional roller coaster that nearly destroyed my marriage and ultimately led to an unexpected resolution. It all started at a backyard barbecue. My husband Tom and I were hosting, and his best friend Alex showed up fashionably late as usual. But when our eyes met across the patio, something felt different. There was an electric charge I'd never experienced before. At the time, Tom and I had been married for 5 years. Things were comfortable, stable, but passion had faded into routine. We rarely argued, but we rarely connected deeply either. I found myself going through the motions, feeling increasingly numb and unfulfilled. Alex's presence that day awakened something in me. His laugh was infectious, his stories captivating. I caught myself hanging on his every word, noticing the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen and heard. Over the next few months, Alex started dropping by more often. We'd chat while Tom watched TV, discussing books, travel, our hopes and fears. With each conversation, our emotional intimacy grew. I looked forward to his visits, my heart racing whenever he walked through the door. I tried to squash these feelings, reminding myself I was a married woman, but the pull was magnetic. In Alex, I saw everything I felt was missing in my marriage. Spontaneity, intellectual stimulation, that spark of desire. Guilt gnawed at me constantly. I loved Tom, but I couldn't deny my growing attraction to Alex. I'd lie awake at night, torn between loyalty to my husband and the intoxicating possibility of passion reignited. Things came to a head one rainy afternoon. Tom was away on a business trip, and Alex stopped by to borrow a book. As he was leaving, our hands brushed. We froze, electricity crackling between us. Before I could think, his lips were on mine in a searing kiss. In that moment, years of pent-up longing exploded. I knew crossing this line would change everything. But as Alex pulled me closer, all thoughts of consequences melted away. I surrendered to the flood of desire, ready to dive headfirst into the unknown. With that fateful kiss, we had crossed a line from which there was no return. Now, we were about to enter a world of secret rendezvous and hidden glances, where the fear of being caught only heightened our desire. But as the stakes grew higher, so did the risk of losing it all. Keeping our affair hidden became a delicate dance of deception. Alex and I crafted elaborate alibis, coordinating our schedules to create opportunities for stolen moments together. We chose discreet meeting spots, quiet cafes in neighboring towns, secluded hiking trails, even the occasional motel room. Each encounter was a rush of adrenaline, knowing we were defying the rules of society and our marriages. There were close calls that nearly exposed our secret. Once, Tom almost walked in on us, embracing in the kitchen when he came home early from work. Another time, a mutual friend spotted us holding hands at a restaurant 2 towns over. We laughed it off, claiming a chance encounter, but my heart raced for days afterward. The emotional roller coaster was intense. When Alex and I were together, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. The passion, the deep conversations, the feeling of being truly desired. It was intoxicating. But the come down after our meetings was brutal. Guilt would crash over me as I lay next to Tom at night, knowing I was betraying his trust. Despite the inner turmoil, I couldn't seem to stop. The affair had become like a drug, and I craved my next fix. The secrecy itself became thrilling, each successful rendezvous reinforcing the addictive cycle. Everything changed during a weekend getaway with Alex. We had 2 full days together, free from the constant fear of discovery. In that extended time, our connection deepened beyond just physical passion. We talked about our hopes, our fears, our dissatisfaction with our current lives. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future with Alex. As we parted ways after that intense weekend, I knew things couldn't go back to how they were before. The affair had shifted from exciting fling to something far more serious. And with that realization came a crushing wave of guilt that I could no longer ignore. They say the truth will set you free. But what happens when the truth could destroy everything you've built? I was about to find out just how high the price of honesty can be. As the affair intensified, guilt began to seep into every aspect of my life. Simple things like having breakfast with Tom became an exercise in restraint. Each time he smiled at me or asked about my day, I felt a sharp pang in my chest. The weight of my secret made even casual conversations feel like navigating a minefield. At night, I'd lie awake, replaying my encounters with Alex, while Tom slept peacefully beside me. The contrast between my passionate affair and the comfortable routine of my marriage became more stark with each passing day. I found myself withdrawing from Tom, afraid that if I let him get too close, he'd see the truth written all over my face. The emotional toll was immense. One moment, I'd be on cloud nine, reliving a tender moment with Alex. The next, I'd be consumed by shame, disgusted with myself for betraying my vows. This constant back and forth left me feeling fragmented, like I was living two separate lives that could never truly coexist. As weeks turned into months, the strain of maintaining my double life began to show. I was irritable, distracted, and prone to mood swings. Tom noticed the change, asking if everything was okay. Each time, I'd brush off his concerns, but I could see the worry in his eyes. It was becoming clear that I couldn't keep up this charade forever. The breaking point came during a dinner party at our home. As I watched Tom and Alex chatting amicably, the full weight of my deception hit me like a ton of bricks. These two men who meant so much to me, completely unaware of how I'd betrayed them both. In that moment, I knew I had to come clean, regardless of the consequences. With trembling hands, I asked Tom if we could talk privately after our guests left. As I saw the confusion and concern on his face, I steeled myself for the hardest conversation of my life. The time had come to face the music and deal with the aftermath of my choices. As the last guest's car pulled away, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. What would happen when I finally let the truth tumble out? Would Tom push me away, or would we find a way to weather this storm together? The next few hours would determine the course of our entire future. I took a deep breath and began my confession. Tom's face cycled through shock, anger, and deep hurt as I revealed the extent of my affair with Alex. When I finished, the silence was deafening. Tom stood up without a word and walked out the door. I collapsed on the couch, overwhelmed by the weight of what I'd done. For the next week, Tom stayed with his brother. Our only communication was terse text messages about practical matters. The separation was agonizing, but it gave us both space to process. When Tom finally came home, his pain was etched in the lines of his face. He told me he needed time to decide if he could forgive me, but he was willing to try couples therapy. Our first therapy session was tense and awkward. We struggled to look at each other, let alone speak openly. But slowly, over weeks of sessions, we began to chip away at the wall between us. We talked about the issues that had led to my affair, the lack of intimacy, the breakdown in communication, the unmet needs on both sides. Rebuilding trust was the hardest part. Tom checked my phone and questioned my whereabouts constantly. I understood his need for reassurance, but it was exhausting. There were times I wondered if we'd ever move past the affair, but we kept showing up, kept talking, kept trying. Months passed. Gradually, we rediscovered moments of joy together, a shared laugh over dinner, a tender touch while watching TV. It wasn't always smooth sailing. We had setbacks and arguments, but we were both committed to seeing if we could salvage our marriage. After a year of hard work, Tom and I sat down to make our final decision. We'd come a long way, but was it enough? As we talked into the night, weighing our history against our hopes for the future, I realized how much this journey had changed us both. Whatever we decided, we weren't the same people who started this process. We were stronger, more self-aware, and ultimately more equipped to face life's challenges, together or apart. Looking back, this affair taught me more about myself than I ever expected. I learned the importance of open communication and addressing issues head on instead of seeking fulfillment elsewhere. Temptation will always exist in long-term relationships, but true commitment means choosing your partner every day, even when it's difficult. This experience fundamentally changed how I view love and marriage. I now understand that passion isn't just about grand gestures or intense emotions. It's about cultivating intimacy through honest conversations, shared experiences, and a willingness to be vulnerable.